Hello, I'm Dr. Gerald Whalen of Zionsville Holistic Chiropractic and Wellness Center. This is day 17 of the hashtag getadjusted movement. I want to spend a few moments with you today responding to a question that I'm asked occasionally, and that's why I avoid the use of medications. Coming to avoiding using medications was actually a process that occurred over a number of years. When I began to first receive chiropractic care, and then once I entered chiropractic college and began to learn about how the body functions, the control and regulation the nerve system provides. Because prior to that time, I took medications actually quite regularly. There were a couple of health problems that I had that occurred, one problem at least a couple of times a year, and that would be whenever I got a cold, I would also get a middle ear infection. So my ears would fill up with fluid and affect my hearing, and it wouldn't resolve on its own. So I would be given antibiotics on a regular basis. The consequence to that was by the age of 15, I was already antibiotic resistant. In other words, the antibiotics were no longer effective. What occurred then was the ear, nose, and throat doctor I was seeing actually took a needle, went through my eardrum, and literally physically drew the fluids out of my ears. Imagine lying on a table with a needle through your eardrum, realizing if you coughed, sneezed, moved, you were going to damage your hearing. Following that, then my tonsils were removed at the age of 16. So that was the medical approach to attempt to solve that problem. Another problem that I had occurred not necessarily on a regular basis, but quite frequently over the years of growing up, and I would get these severe muscle cramps in my abdomen that would not go away, and I would be given an injection then of a muscle relaxant. And so the muscle relaxant would relax the musculature, but it wouldn't prevent the problem from reoccurring. So when I got into chiropractic college, this particular problem showed up. And at that point, I'm learning how the body functions, how chiropractic works, and then began to wonder for myself, well, what will chiropractic do relative to this particular problem that's been a reoccurring one in my life? So I did not take any medications. I went strongly with chiropractic care on a very, very regular basis, and a very interesting phenomenon occurred. The symptoms that I was experiencing took a number of months to actually finally resolve. They didn't stay intense all those numbers of months. They gradually diminished over time. And I remember with classmates and colleagues at that time, I'm asking, are we sure this is okay? Are we sure this is the right way to go? So it took 8, maybe 9 months before the symptoms were gone. An amazing thing then occurred. That particular problem never came back. And so that was amazing. And there were a number of lessons that I learned from that. One, that those symptoms I was experiencing, they were actually part of the healing process. And if you help the nerve system to work optimally, it will continue then. The healing process will continue before it was stuck. Granted, if I just sat with the muscle spasms early on in life, they would have sustained. So it was the chiropractic care and the body's response to healing better that allowed that process to continue and go through to its completion, so that the problem then was ended. And there have been a number of occasions through my life where typically a person would utilize medication. There have been some occasions where the uncomfortableness was pretty intense, and still I avoided the medication because I wanted my body to know what was going on. I didn't want to suppress it. I didn't want to interfere with the healing process. So that can lead sometimes to being quite uncomfortable. I don't always recommend that people approach this the way I approach this. A colleague of mine once was asked if he could live at another time in history, when would that be? His response, well, he wasn't sure, but he'd want it to be sometime after anesthesia was created. So I'm kind of in that vein as well. There is a proper time and a proper place to utilize medications. when you want to and have a need to avoid serious and severe, extremely excruciating types of symptoms. But there are a lot of things that I allow the healing process to continue and avoid medications for. So this is a very, what would you say, there's a lot more to this topic, but that was my experience with figuring for myself that medications were something that I was going to avoid only in the most extreme circumstances.